Hi, I'm R.L. Stein. I write the Goosebumps books. In a few moments, you're going to see one of my favorite stories come to life. No, this ain't even it.
Tonight, on Unsolved Mysteries, two horror nerds sit in front of a camera, talk about movies and stuff. Join me. Wait, that's not it either.
I'm Murray Franklin. Murray, welcome, special guest.
Hey!
That's definitely not it.
Really, no, dude, you look like Tommy Wiseau right now.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa!
How's your sex life?
It really is hard to recollect exactly how our old show intro used to go.
Yeah, it really is a terror.
Oh! Hey everyone, I'm Leo.
And I'm Frank.
And welcome to the second season of Terror Recollect. I knew it.
Oh, dude. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning back into Season 2 of Terror Recollect. And thank you to those who have been with us from the very beginning in Season 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who are just tuning in and this is your first experience with us, I invite you to go through this YouTube channel and check out our first season. It's 10 episodes of us describing our love for horror, going into detail about certain films, certain subgenres, and different kinds of things that I know you're going to enjoy and love. And feel free to share it with your friends because I know that they would love it too. So even if you're someone who maybe doesn't know a whole lot about film talk or film discussions, this would be a great way to get you to understand exactly what's happening behind the lens that's causing these wonderful scenes to come together. I'm really excited to share that with you guys. In this episode, however, we're going to be focusing on what is potentially the best Halloween sequel of all time.
Which is Halloween 4.
Halloween 4, this is the vinyl. In
The
case you're wondering what this was. It's the vinyl. It's very cool.
Which is Halloween 4, the Return of Michael Myers. Now it's called the Return of Michael Myers simply because Halloween 3, which we are not going to go into.
Maybe. I might have to force Frank to talk about Halloween 3.
You can't force me to do nothing. Force you. It's actually called Halloween for the Return of Michael Myers because they wanted to make sure that people knew after the not very successful Halloween 3 that didn't feature Michael Myers. They wanted the fans to know that Michael Myers was indeed coming back.
Yeah.
And just to get more people interested into the theater.
So one of the things about this film, before we get into the specifics of it, is the mask. This is the mask here on the vinyl artwork. A lot of fans are not huge fans of the mask, but you are.
I am.
What is it specifically that you like about this mask?
You know, I can't pinpoint it specifically. I'm thinking because ghost movies, I'll be completely honest, scare the crap out of me. And this is the most ghostly, it's just the white.
Because it's like a sheer white.
It's a sheer white.
It's not so much the sculpt or the shape of the cheekbones, eye holes or lips or ears. It's more or less the complete blankness.
Yeah, it's the expressionless, or emotionless, even more so than the original mask, which is what Dr. Loomis described it as, basically, the emotionless face.
Yeah.
And this one is even more so. And not only that, but this is my favorite iteration of Michael Myers, played by George Wilbur. The most intimidating to me, and just the overall scariest. And it's the only film in the franchise that's actually scared me, like, even as an adult almost. It still gives me the creeps with certain scenes.
Would you say that this is your favorite of the sequels?
Absolutely. Yeah.
One thing I've always heard describe the Halloween series is like a tree. It started off with Halloween 1, and as it grew, it didn't just grow linearly. It branched off. So you have Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which some people don't like, but other people do. It's a branch from that tree, and it shoots off to the side. Then you've got Halloween 2, which is kind of its own great sequel, which is still kind of tied to Halloween 4, 5, and 6. It still kind of follows that same timeline. But then you get Halloween H2O that ignores the events of 3, 4, 5, and 6. You get the Rob Zombie two movies of Rob Zombie's. So this really is like a tree that shoots off and there's different branches. Then you get the new Halloween, the 2018 version, which ignores everything after the original, which is a hard pill to swallow for some of us hardcore fans.
And even though Halloween 4 is my favorite of the sequels, I love to death Halloween 2. And it kind of, annoyed me that they ignored it. But we'll get into that another time. But like he said, it's basically a tree that branches off in these different directions. And at this point, it's actually kind of like a choose your own path type thing when you go revisit these movies.
If you try to look at it in a positive way, you almost look at it as which timeline, which reality am I going to choose?
You got all these great, sometimes great options. So
for the most part, great options. Yeah. But diving back into, I just wanted to kind of give a little background on the Halloween series. And so this is a franchise that we can both talk richly in detail about how much we really like it, because we're horror nerds, and that's just what horror nerds do. Yeah. So as far as the Jamie Lloyd trilogy, part 4, the intro, what are your thoughts on the very, very intro to part 4?
I absolutely love the intro. It's one of the creepiest intros in a horror movie ever, I'd say. It really sets the tone for the film.
There's like farm implements. And it has all the feelings of autumn, all the fall. It feels like fall. It's not spring. It's not summer. It's definitely not winter. You are in fall. And for horror fans and for Halloween fans, that's kind of like the favorite time of the year. That's when just you almost feel like a kid again, because you're just like, oh my God, and not even that we go trick-or-treating or anything like that, but like just, you're in your favorite time of the year, the beginning of your favorite time of the year. And this intro nails it with the music, the scenery that they chose, and then even the awesome fade in to the beginning of the story, which is the ambulance driving through the rain to get to where they eventually go to, which is the Smiths Grove Sanitarium, where Michael Myers has been in a coma for 10 years.
Right. Well, after the end of Halloween 2, where he supposedly burned to death, somehow, miraculously, he did survive, but he's been in a coma this whole time.
Thank goodness he survived.
And
that's all I can say.
So these paramedics are basically on their way to pick him up and transfer him to another facility. And even from the moment they get to the hospital and the security guard, he's even creepy.
The security guard is great. I love the security guard. I don't know what his name is or his character's name is, but he's got like these. He's got these great lines, like he'll say like, "Yeah, hell of a night, eh? Yeah. Just talking about it gives me the creeps. Yeah, Halloween night a decade ago. Like, just this guy he's not trying to be creepy, or maybe he is, but he's great to set the tone, because in a movie you have to start with a proper tone, and it's one of the best.
And even the paramedics are just listening to him talk about this guy that they're picking up. They have really no idea who it is. They don't know his backstory. He's giving them the backstory.
So not only do they give the ambulance drivers the history on Michael, but he's kind of filling in the audience as exposition, and he's doing it in a great way where you don't realize what you're listening is to his exposition, is the backstory as to how we got to where we got to, and it's done in like almost like a campfire tale kind of way where it's cool, it's creepy, and it's just like kids like myself who used to like watch scary movies, as a kid and in the dark when you're not supposed to be watching them, and it kind of brought you back to that kind of feeling of like, oh man, this is so cool, and it captured that essence, and that's what this movie has in spades. It has essence. It has that right feel.
And it's great that he's even filling you in, because even for the people who haven't even seen the original ones, this gives you everything you need to know.
Oh yeah, you can jump straight in if you've never, for some reason, if you've never seen the original Halloween, you can go straight into this exactly, and it could even go not being called Halloween 4, it could just be called Halloween: The Revenge of Michael Myers, and you could start as a brand new chapter, and it tells you everything you need to know. That's a really good point. Absolutely.
And so these guys, they go to pick him up. They basically they take him away. You can even see what is he like, the guy that's
the hospital administrator.
The administrator, right? So he's even glad that he's gone, because he just, I don't know, he's dangerous one.
And even that guy is creepy. Like he talks in a very scratchy tone of voice. Yeah. Which one of you is responsible to sign?
Yeah.
Outside. And it's like the whole thing, you're set up for something creepy.
Yeah.
And the way he delivers his lines is just fantastic.
And one of my favorite like little snippets is when they get into the van, they load him up. He's like, night doc, and he's like, drive carefully.
Drive carefully, like just something bad's gonna happen.
And then he gets he goes up to the window, he gets one last look inside, and then he just backs off, and he's like, it's your problem now. And
that's great directing. That's real subtle because the audience is the one that's discovering it.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's not in your face. I mean, it's apparent, but the audience is the one who there's a little something in the back of your brain that goes, oh my God, he just did a second look. Oh my God, it's pouring rain.
Yeah.
Even the scary guy is creeped out. And it just builds all this anticipation. And then one part that I really like, and I used to love to crank this up on my TV back in the VHS days, or I still do now, is after the girl takes the blood pressure, she goes, all right, let's move him. Then you get this almost like this bassier, hipper version of the Halloween theme.
That's my favorite version of it.
Oh my God, I just got chills right now. I don't know if the camera can zoom in, but I just get chills right there. Thinking about that particular scene because it is just like, oh my gosh, and you're in for something special.
Yeah.
And even just, it's funny too because I don't think about Halloween 4, but now that we're discussing it, I'm like, jeez Louise, this is a great movie.
Yeah.
We've only talked about the intro.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about the characters, the acting, the storyline. Just the intro alone will sell you to this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so after that, what happens? Basically, what you were set up for, you knew was going to happen, happens. He awakens from his coma.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler. He awakens from his coma at the mere mention that he has another blood relative in his niece, Jamie.
Yeah, like his fist balls up, and they're in the middle of talking about something innocuous, the paramedic or the ambulance driver or the people in the back, and then all of a sudden I don't understand why, okay, and then like Michael grabs the dude in the back of the head and just bashing him in and sticks a thumb in his forehead.
Yeah, that's one of the most like random kills ever.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick my thumb in your forehead.
Yeah, not in your eyes.
Not in your eye.
No, in your freaking
forehead, like right in the center. That's got to be hard.
Yeah, I mean it's a skull.
Yeah,
but I mean it lets you know that for those of you who are familiar with 1 and 2, he always used weapons or he would choke them. Right?
He didn't have any right now.
This Michael is no joke. He is not playing around. He is,
and he is I think they show him as physically stronger.
Yeah, in this
a little bit more invulnerable because in the first one he was a man. He was just really good at hiding,
right? And
he could survive a fall from a second story, and even that was a lot because Loomis shot him. Yeah. And you have Halloween 2 where he's maybe a little bit more invulnerable, but in Halloween 4, I mean, it takes a lot of lower arm strength to stick your thumb to somebody's forehead. So they're definitely showing us this is a more cranked up to 11 version of Michael.
And then right after that, it cuts right into our lead actress, our lead character, which is Jamie Lloyd, played by Danielle Harris, and Ellie Cornell plays Rachel, her foster sister, right? And the chemistry, I'd say, between them is amazing. Like you really believe that they're these sisters or foster sisters, and
absolutely. And even like the original Halloween had teenage girls in high school, and it kind of had their banter. It had the way that they talked to each other. And this movie is very surprising, and even just the subsequent movie, Halloween 5, where the storyline became about this little girl. And it's such a crazy attempt to make the center focus of your horror movie be this, 8-year-old girl.
It's a very bold move, I'd say. And
there's not many, if any, horror films that make an 8-year-old girl their lead.
Yeah.
And I mean, she had a great ensemble cast to back her. But if Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd didn't do her job right, if she didn't pull on all those emotional strings, if she didn't have you invested in her safety or believing the level of fear that she felt in those scenes, which she played fantastically, none of it would have worked. So it's like this weird combination that just happened to work perfectly.
Yeah. And
you care for them, you care for Rachel, you care for Jamie, and you end up wanting the best for them. And that's a great way to be invested in your central characters right away. So then what else happens in the movie?
And that's what I just want to real quick expand upon your point where she's very vulnerable. And so you have to have this character where, even though they're not blood sisters, Rachel is just she wants to protect her.
Oh,
she
yeah.
treats her like her own sister.
She even says, we're not real sisters, Jamie, but it doesn't mean that I love you any less.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you want to go so far as to say like social commentary, like it just goes to show that, you know, a good caring person, that's all that matters. You just have to have a heart for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And yeah, during the whole movie,
she's trying
to protect her.
Right?
Yeah.
She goes above and beyond.
Above and beyond. And that's a wonderful quality to see in the movie.
Yeah.
And as sisters, they're adorable when you see them in person, even though they're like super grown up now. But it's just like, oh, like you still have that warm feeling for them when you see them at like conventions and stuff, and you get autographs from them. It's just like, oh, it is so cool.
Yeah. And she Ellie Cornell and as Rachel, she deserves a lot of credit because Jamie Lloyd would say, you know, people would say that, well, Jamie's the star, yes, but as far as when you're listing off Scream Queens and Survivors or Final Girls, Rachel's one of the best, I'd say. You know,
I agree.
Just this movie alone.
Yeah.
I mean, she goes through hell and throughout the whole movie to protect Jamie.
For those of you who haven't seen it or just kind of spoilering along with us, Dr. Loomis from Halloween 1 and 2 makes a return. He was in the ball of fire at the end of Halloween 2 and survived with just a little burn mark on his cheek somehow. Frank was mentioning before when we were talking that there was, I guess, original version that they were going to shoot that kind of showed that Loomis got blown into an adjacent room or something to show that he was fine. And I wish they would have shown that. I always like when movies keep continuity between each other, especially such a big gap. It was like 10 years apart between Halloween 2 or more. No. 81 to 88. So 7 years apart. But it was 10 years from the first Halloween. And Halloween 2 was supposed to take place on the same night, and that's what nerds do. They overanalyze things. So that's just how it goes. But anyway, so then the opportunity for having Loomis come back is one of my favorite things I like about it too, because he's the heart of the franchise, or at least he was until Halloween 6. And there's a warmth about him. He's like a grandpa kind of character. He kind of gets a little bit more like progressively senile and extreme as the films go on. But in this one, you think you really feel that he cares and he doesn't want anything to happen to anyone in this town. So he kind of reassumes the role of guardian protector, you know, against the villain.
He goes to the hospital where he was being held. Michael was being held originally.
Right. And
he was informed by Hoffman that there was a ambulance crashed. And then right away, Dr. Loomis knows that he escaped. He knows
how many people in the bus? Yeah.
And then so he goes to the crash site. There's no body. Well, there's bodies mangled, but no Michael Myers. So he goes off. Basically, he knows exactly where he's going. Yeah. So he goes on his way to Haddonfield. But on the way there, he stops at this gas station. He goes inside. Everybody's dead. And then but he finds Michael Myers there, and that's one of my favorite scenes in the whole film.
One of the reasons it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole film is because Loomis tries to rationalize, and he almost pleads with Michael because he knows what Michael is capable of. He's like the guardian protector of this evil, to try to keep this evil away from the town of Haddonfield. And, you know, he walks with a cane. He's an older man. And there's a point where he even ditches his cane, and you can hear it hit the ground. And he's asking, I got just chills again. Can the camera catch that? Maybe not. Don't go to Haddonfield, Michael. Leave those people in peace, please. And it just, I mean, it tugs at you, and you're just like, oh my God, what's gonna happen?
And even it says, like, if you want another victim, take me.
If you want another victim, take me. But leave those people in peace. It's just like, oh my God, chills.
Yeah.
That's Batman, sorry. But yeah, chills. And that just goes to show like how much we have that love and that connection for this series and how well it pays off. Because there are some sequels, which we will talk about, where it didn't pay off as good. And you're kind of given a bunch of fill and a bunch of fluff in place of this really like layered, strong story. And all the characters kill it completely. Who are some of the new characters?
One of my favorite characters is the sheriff. Sheriff Meeker, played by Bo Starr.
Bo Starr!
Yeah, and he is so much different than Sheriff Brackett, played by Charles Cyphers from the original two, that in the original one, when Dr. Loomis goes to Haddonfield and he's warning the sheriff that Michael's coming, and what to be prepared for, he doesn't believe him. He's just kind of like, shrugs him off.
That's a good point. Bo, I almost called him Bo Starr. Well, he is Bo Starr, but his Sheriff Meeker believes him like almost right away.
Almost right away, yeah.
It takes him like a second.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, all right, what are we going to do? Yeah. What's the game plan here?
Exactly.
How do we keep this from turning, I think he even says it, how do we keep from turning this into a repeat of 10 years ago? Yeah. And
because at first he says, Michael Myers is an invalid.
It's really a good movie.
Yeah.
God, this is the first time we've ever talked about it to this depth, and especially in front of a camera. I'm just like, holy crap. Yeah. This is fantastic.
And he even says Michael Myers is an invalid. He's after
Sheriff. Lord.
He's after his niece. He's gonna kill that little girl and anybody who gets in his way. And then he says,
what does he say? Like, I can't remember the number. 7 bodies, Sheriff, between here and Richmond. I forget the damn words, but he's like, I tell you, Michael Myers is here. He's in this town. He's here to kill that little girl and anyone who gets in his way. Chills again. Gosh, why don't we have a chill camera here?
And then he even says, he tells his deputy, call the troopers and check his story out or something. And then he says, the operator says the lines are down, Sheriff, or whatever. And then right away he grabs his coat. He's like, let's go check on this little girl, and off they go.
And especially the fact, like we said, the little girl is kind of, this innocent creature in a sense where it's like she was born into a family she had no say in, but that made her a target. Yeah. And it's just like she is a very vulnerable. I mean, she actually holds her own very well, but I mean, she's still an 8-year-old girl. Right. So it's not like we're saying, oh yeah, it's a grown man, it's a grown woman that can defend themselves. This is a little girl that requires, she's a kid. And so to be able to have the audience concerned about this one child, it pulls at the heartstrings of everybody.
And then Michael Myers, this is my favorite iteration of Michael Myers, played by George Wilbur, who I think did amazing. Even more so than, I know it's blasphemy, but George Wilbur, even above Nick Castle, the original Michael Myers, is probably is my favorite. And this is even my favorite iteration of Dr. Loomis. He's more active.
Even more than the original?
Yeah. He's very active in this movie. He's out to stop Michael. It's not like...
I agree. The chills have spoken. I agree completely. But I mean, I think the first film is like Halloween 3 says, the immortal classic. To me, I mean, Halloween 1, nothing can ever touch it. But to me, this is such a great performance by Donald Pleasence. Mm-hmm. So I definitely agree with you. I don't know about my favorite version, but still a stellar performance. The best of the sequels.
To me, like in the first movie, he's just wandering around. He's looking for him the entire movie. The only thing he really does is make a couple phone calls, and then he shoots him at the end. This movie...
What a hater!
No, I love him in the first movie, but this movie, in the gas station scene, after he's pleading with him not to go, and then all of a sudden he switches, and he's like,
Well, when I'm jumping ahead.
But he said after he's pleading with him not to go to Haddonfield, if you want another victim, take me. And then he says, God damn you, and then he shoots him, and then he's disappeared. Yeah. And then he's dumping over out of explosions in this one, and he's getting thrown through glass.
One of my favorite scenes, though, is the scene right after that where he runs into the preacher who's driving the car.
That's what he was saying. Yeah.
And then there's a part at the end where, and this is, I think we talked about this in season 1. One of the reasons that these films become so much part of our memories and of our lives is because we watched them over and over and over again. This was, for me, it was the early 90s when I was watching these, probably about the same time for you.
Yeah.
Early 90s when I was watching these, and like back then it was like you got movies at the video store and you were lucky you had some collection. But nowadays with streaming and on demand and all of this, I mean, you're just bombarded with entertainment. Back then, if you liked a movie, it wasn't out of the ordinary to watch it over and over and over. And so for me, it's like, I almost get emotional because I almost remember being a kid, putting that tape in the tape deck, and you're going to run into that warm-hearted Loomis, and then he runs into this preacher character, and then they have this little, jibber jabber back and forth, this little banter back and forth. And then at the end, the preacher starts singing the song that says, "Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful," he's a little lower than that, "beautiful river, gather with the saints at the river." And it's just like, it's such a part of my youth.
And what's
to remember that scene.
Yeah, and what's funny is that scene it doesn't really. It's one of those scenes where they really could have left out of the movie. I mean, but
it works so good. Because nowadays they probably would have cut something like that out and say, what does that have to do with anything? Just give them the kills, give them the this, give them that, give them the bad character development.
Right. Yeah.
But that's part of why this movie works, because there are small scenes like that where the dad in the beginning is getting his tie and his coffee and they're, it lends itself to real life in a sense. So you feel like, although the situation you're watching is very, in a sense, like fantasy based, because it's something that would never happen in reality. Yeah, there are serial killers out there, but the majority of them don't come back from after being burned 10 years and have masks and all of that. So you're watching this kind of elevated version of reality. But little scenes like that keep it grounded and keep it connected to you. And Dwight Little, who's the director, some of his other movies, he's done a lot of things like that where it's just he keeps the story grounded, so in a way where you connect to it. And I think that's great directing.
So after that, it basically moves on to nighttime in Haddonfield. People are going trick-or-treating. It was right before Danielle Harris goes out trick-or-treating with Rachel and or Jamie.
Before that, we get a little bit of an introduction to some other characters like Brady.
Right.
And the sheriff's daughter.
Yep.
Kathleen Kinmont, who plays Kelly Meeker. Who is a gorgeous 80s chick. This was 88? 88. Gorgeous, blonde, well-endowed 80s chick. And, there are horror fans of many different varieties. Some people who like super obscure horror movies. Some people who like modern movies. But for me, I love my 80s horror movies in every shape and form. And one of the reasons is because we get these gorgeous 80s chicks, and I've talked about this in previous episodes of Terror Recollect, and she's one.
She is one.
Oh,
and she's
gorgeous.
Still gorgeous to this.
Oh
day.
Yeah.
To this day,
she is phenomenal looking still now. Absolutely.
And then so Brady is, he starts off kind of like a douchebag. He's dating with Rachel. She kind of.
Yeah, and they're not really clear. It's like they're kind of dating, but they're kind of not.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
And then she stands him up because she has to take Jamie trick-or-treating. And he just is not very understanding. We end up finding out that he's actually sleeping with Kelly Meeker. And so...
I think they just kind of picked it up that day, though. It seems like maybe she had eyes for him because she was always turning around and looking at him. Yeah. But I think it was because Rachel had to cancel that day that she even says, so you hopped onto the next best thing.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing. It was, maybe he's kind of a bit of a player, but he jumped on the situation after she dropped him, or was unable to. So he's kind of a jerk move, kind of a douchebag move there, to have to do that to her, and especially when she's one of the good girls, right. Rachel is. Yeah. But then again,
he just wanted to get laid. That's all he wanted to do.
You can't really blame him. It is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And on Halloween Day with this gorgeous woman. So anyway, moving on. What else happens in our story? So we get introduced to Kelly, who's the sheriff's daughter, by the way, and then you get introduced to Brady, and then Jamie goes trick or treating.
Loomis and Meeker go to the Crothers' house to check on Jamie and them to see if they're home or whatever, and they find a dead dog, and then they go to the police station, I believe. And then everybody in the police station is dead.
So at this point, you have Halloween night. People are trick-or-treating. People are out there doing stuff. And then you have this presence of Michael Myers, who is now slowly kind of taking away the safety factors. The other police are now kind of out of play. Even the safety of the family dog is gone. all these different little things.
And he even kills the electrician.
He does kill
He takes the electricity out of the whole city, yeah.
Bucky.
And that's another reason why I like this version of Michael is because he's very, he has a plan. It's not just him stalking people at random.
Yeah.
He has
It's
a plan.
very practical.
Yeah.
It's like, let me take out the electric grid. Let me take out the sheriff. Let me take out the power. Let me do this and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So no,
He literally gives her like, and that's another thing that makes you feel for Jamie is that this Michael is so amped up, and she's so vulnerable that it's very imbalanced, and it makes it that much more scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and then after he takes out the electricity, he takes out the sheriff's department. Then the guys at the bar get wind of it.
Oh, the guys at the bar.
Earl. And Al.
You got it, Earl.
And then he basically, and it's the same thing. Like they jump into action right away when they try calling the police station, and nobody picks up. Phone never just rings at a police station. No way,
not no how. Yeah. So then, one of the fun things about these drunks that kind of hit the streets is that you understand why they're doing it. You're kind of glad that they're out there doing something, but they're not cops.
Yeah, the extra protection.
They're a bunch of old dudes that are drunk, and then we actually end up finding out that what was the line? Al here lost his boy 10 years back. So I'm only assuming that it was one of the ambulance drivers, or it was Bob.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying like, oh well, the age with the ambulance drivers. You know, you're talking about Bud, right? Bud. Yeah.
I don't think it would have been Jimmy.
Well, he didn't die.
Well, this is another reason why I don't think it would have been Jimmy.
Right. So it could be Bud, but the age. Some people were saying that the age didn't measure up because Bud was kind of an older dude, kind of. But I'm thinking it might have been Bob. That's my go.
Maybe. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, he says Al here lost his boy 10 years back. And
so it just kind of goes to show that there's a reason why these guys are going after them.
Yeah.
And it is kind of that, it's a bit of a mob mentality, but it's also people protecting their home. Yeah. You know, and after such a difficult event 10 years ago, because Halloween 1 and 2 took place on the same night, you understand why they're doing it.
But again, they're very careless, and which is a scene coming up that proves that.
It's great writing, though.
Yeah.
It's great movie structure, because then you're sitting there going like, oh gosh, these screw ups. Oh my God. But you know they're out there for good reasons, but it's not going to lead to anything good.
Yeah.
I mean, they did do some good. There's a point later on in the movie where they're actually the ones who pick up Rachel and Jamie. And it is almost like that same kind of warm grandfather thing.
A bunch of these badass uncles.
There you go. That's a great way of putting it. A bunch of badass uncles. Here comes cavalry. Yeah. Like, you know, it's like they got like a warm cup of cocoa for you or something. Like, you just know everything is going to be okay.
And I was going to say, we're jumping a little bit ahead, but
I had to because we're talking about the drunks. But let's take it back just a bit.
But yeah, so, you know, this guy, Brady, I was going to jump back to Brady, but he ends up being a hero. Yeah. You know, he's a douchebag at first.
He got redemption.
Yeah, he did.
And that's good. I'm telling you, this movie is filled with good writing, good directing, fantastic acting. I mean, all of it is fantastic. And it's funny, too. I made this observation earlier, but we've never talked about it in our friendship to this detail before. Right. And now that I have, I'm like,
I just want to.
New favorite Halloween sequel?
Right.
Like, wow. It really is phenomenal. Like, Halloween 2 kind of has to stand on the legs of Halloween 1. Yeah. I mean, it's good in its own right, but this one is like phenomenal. Yeah. In its own right. It is a self-contained, wonderful movie with very little to complain about. And especially if you love it, you have nothing to complain about. But just in general, I mean, they give you such strong everything that you're looking for.
Really, the only complaint I ever hear about this movie is the mask. That's really the only complaint.
I'm one of those guys that don't like the mask, I understand why he likes it, and it actually, since he explained it today, I understand it more, because it's the sheer white that he connects to, and even just comparing it to like a ghostly figure, I get that more. I think I'm just a sucker for that original William Shatner Halloween 1 mask, and like the stretched out Dick Warlock version from Part 2, and Part 5 was the first horror movie I watched. First Halloween movie I watched. So I like that mask, but to me, this one's kind of plain, but I get it. And that's probably my only major complaint about this movie. I like George Wilbur. He's a great Michael.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, moving on. Where else are we in the story?
So Brady gets he gets
yes.
redemption by saving Jamie and Rachel, and on the staircase, which is one of my favorite kills in the entire franchise because it's very it builds and builds and builds. You got this like they're trying to escape. Everyone's dead. The Deputy Logan guy is dead, who was sitting by the front door with a shotgun, but Michael was already in the house, by that time. So he's dead. They try to escape. They don't know where Jamie is. They go upstairs, but then Jamie comes out of the room. Jamie, thank God. And then he looks down on the bottom of the stairs, and there's Michael right there. And then
he's like slowly looking, and then he looks back up.
Yep.
And you're almost like at the point of view of you're the person up on the stairs, and he looks up at you, and it's creepy.
I mean, he's right. It's not like him standing in the shadows no more. He's out in the open. He's coming to get you. So, and here's Brady, like, they're telling him, let's go, come on. And then he's trying to load the shotgun. He's telling him to go.
Yeah, that's also great writing and directing where it's just like, of course, the shotgun is not going to load properly. And he's like, oh, you can't do it. And then get up there, Rachel. Brady, come with us. And it really adds to the tension of the scene.
And he's like, what Meeker asked him earlier, you know how to use a gun? He's like, yes, sir. It's just, so did he lie just to impress him, or just so he wouldn't kick his ass for banging his daughter? I don't know.
I never thought about that.
But I'm assuming he lied.
Apparently Frank thinks about these things, which is good.
I'm a nerd. That's what nerds do,
That's
right?
what nerds do. Can I have a shirt made that says that's what nerds do?
And so he to me, he obviously lied. So, and he's trying to load this gun. He can't quite get it, but by the time he gets Michael even has time to stop a few times and look over.
Yeah. It's just like Michael's going to take his sweet time.
Yeah. He ain't scared of it. He knows.
He's just like, oh, I got this.
Right.
Are you kidding? I took the power out. I took Bucky out. I killed all the police officers. I did everything. So, like, nothing's going to happen to my plan on killing this one Brady dude.
Yeah. And sure enough, that's what happens.
Sure enough, I mean, he was right.
He gets a couple of licks in, but...
barely.
Yeah, But, he does give him time to escape up onto the roof, which is one of the best chase scenes to me, is the roof scene. Yeah,
because you never really see that in horror movies necessarily, a rooftop chase. It's kind of more of an action movie thing.
Yeah.
Because Dwight Little did more action movies in his past. He did like some Steven Seagal movies. He did a Brandon Lee movie called Rapid Fire. He did it after Halloween, though. But he was an action director. And so I think that's why it feels more tense to us, because he has the talent of an action film director that would give us just the right amount of something more than just a cheap shock or jump scare. It's like, let's take them to the roof and have the little girl dangle off a cord and have him swipe at their hands. It's like, that's not really something that you get in horror movies. You get that in action movies.
Right.
Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, stuff like that. There's something that occurs in that. So again, another bit of kudos to Dwight Little, who was the director of this.
Yeah. And then, so basically, you think that Rachel died. She falls off the roof. Jamie gets down safely, and then she runs away. The next stop is the schoolhouse, and she bumps into Dr. Loomis at that point. And then she's, everybody.
You almost feel like a sense of safety too, because you're with Loomis,
right?
Or at least that's the impression that I felt, was like, oh, Loomis is here, everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And but I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit and just to say how creepy the tone is when the power goes out. Michael's on the loose, and even Sheriff Meeker says that. He goes, our power's out and we have a maniac or a killer loose on the streets. It's like, what a great recipe that you have. And I would say, honestly, that in itself is my favorite thing about the whole movie. Just that setup. Because you don't get that in other movies. You don't get that the power is out in the town. You don't get the only cops. There's only 2 cops left, and there's a little old man who knows Michael, and you got this little girl. I mean, just the concept of, and you got these drunks out on the streets trying to, with good intention, trying to do their part. But
and we actually skipped that part because they actually think that they see Michael at one point, and then they just open fire on
And they killed Ted Hollister.
Ted Hollister. So they
It's
go to the
Ted
schoolhouse.
Hollister. Sorry, I had to say that again.
They go to the schoolhouse. She runs into Dr. Loomis. They go to the schoolhouse because he's like, well, maybe that's the last place he'll look for you because he was already been to your house. That's what he tells her. That's the first place.
She says she wants to go home.
Yeah.
No, I've already been there. That's the first place he'll look for you.
Yeah.
So he's still kind of gives off a creepy air, Loomis, because of his tone and because he's kind of this wise man that knows where the evil lurks. So there's a little unsettlingness about Loomis, but there's still that warmth of like the protector.
Yeah. And so they go inside. And it's right after really they go inside that things go back to the way they were. It's not safe anymore. He shows up. And he grabs him. That's where the famous blonde-haired Michael shows up.
Yeah.
And then he grabs Loomis, throws him through the window. It doesn't kill him, which is weird.
Bennett Tramer made a reappearance.
Right.
From the grave.
Right.
For those who don't know what I'm talking about, go watch
Halloween.
Halloween 2 and become a Halloween 2 nerd, and you'll know what that means.
So, and then basically they have this little scuffle, and then she trips. Oh, she runs away. She falls down the stairs. Michael actually gets his hands on her and grabs her by the leg.
Rachel comes in with a fire extinguisher, and she becomes like Ripley from Alien.
Yeah,
She's just like, get off her,
yeah,
kind of thing. And then the fact that a safe Halloween night of trick-or-treating has descended into this madness, because Jamie's wearing this little clown costume. And that was the intent, was to go trick-or-treating. And that's what makes this movie like a true, amazing Halloween sequel, because it takes place with kids going trick-or-treating, and then everything goes bad. And Michael has this grand scheme. I never really thought about it before. Probably this movie more than any other, he has a grand scheme. He doesn't have a grand scheme in 5 or 6. Not really, because there's other characters that pull the strings. 2, he's just kind of moving around trying to just pursue his prey. But in this one, he's just like, let me write everything I need to do down. Get white mask, get coveralls, take out power, all this, and it's just like, I'm moving this thing to like maybe my favorite Halloween sequel. I mean, I don't know what currently would hold that title. Maybe Halloween 2, but I think this would be my new favorite Halloween sequel. I'm gonna go ahead and call it. I'll go ahead and call this. This is my new favorite Halloween sequel, just because I've never had to explain it before, and now that I'm explaining it, man, I've got chills run up and down like 3 times, like in a good way, chills. And just like how amazing, utterly amazing that is.
It's not just a great horror movie; it's a great movie.
Absolutely.
Really is. It really is.
And my personal belief on that is because the director wasn't just a horror director, wasn't just some guy that was there to crank out another movie. I think that's what happened with Halloween 5.
Yeah.
But Halloween 4, like I said, I have a lot of respect for Dwight Little, and his screenwriter that he works with is a guy named Alan B. McElroy, and he's credited in the credits as the writer. He's also the writer of the Rapid Fire Brandon Lee movie and of that Seagal movie. I think it's Marked for Death. That's the other movie that he did with Seagal. But I think that it attributes him to being such a great director. And he's directed comedies, he's directed dramas, like he understands story. It just goes to show good horror movies aren't just throwaways that are like, oh, it's just for those outcast people who like watching people die. That's not what it is at all. It's just fantastic story. That's this roller coaster of emotions and thrills, and you feel everything. And I think that's what a good movie does, regardless of genre, is it takes you down this path. And Halloween 4 does that amazingly. Utterly amazingly.
And so this is actually one of my favorite sequences, probably in the entire franchise, is where they're driving and you think they're safe. Jamie and Rachel are in the front seat with Earl.
Oh, that's a great scene where they're driving down and there's like fog in the air. Again, that's great.
And you're like, okay, they left him behind. They're out of the city. They're on their way to safety. And you got three guys in the back of the truck. And then all of a sudden you just see and it's all really calm. There's that music playing. It's all like, okay, you can settle down. But then nope. And then here comes the hands coming up from the truck in the back.
Is the first is just a hand, and then the second one is the hand with the butcher knife.
Yeah. And then the guy's sitting right there, and I think it's Al. I think it's Al.
I don't know.
The big guy, the big husky guy. He's actually sitting right there, and Michael's just climbing up right behind him, or beside him even. And they don't hear a thing. And he even goes actually past him to the guy that's standing up.
That's true. He actually passes one guy before he actually.
Because the guy, like, he hears, he turns around and then he tries to, like, hit him with his gun or something, but then he just gets him and then he throws. Oh no. He stabs him in the back, and that's when the big guy gets up, and he stabs him, and then he throws them two off the back of the truck, and then the only ones left is the older guy, the old man, and then he grabs him, throws him off the side.
Well, the one shot I'm thinking of, someone gets launched clear across and hits the ground hard.
But it looks so... Ugh.
Yeah, and that's, again, action movie director, where it's just like, this is more than just, stab and then do off-screen violence or something. This is like, whew, bam!
He just... like that, grabs Earl's face and he just rips it off.
Yeah, he drips like a chunk from his neck or something.
Like breaks his neck, I think. Like in the process, I think. He's like, But and then they're freaking out. He's on top of the car basically, and she kind of like Rachel just jumps into action. Like she's like pushes his body out, and she takes over the wheel, and basically she throws him. She stops. She throws him off the car after a little tussle. And then she runs him over then. And then she hits him, and then Meeker and the others, they show up, and then he's laying there. I don't know, they think he's dead, I don't know. I think Rachel says, we killed him. But then Jamie's over there, she goes over there by the body.
She gets like called over to him or something. I think that's the insinuation at some point. I don't know if it's insinuated in 5 or 4 that they have some kind of connection. But it's like, why would if she's been pursued the whole night by him, why would she just walk over and hold him by the hand?
Yeah, she holds his hand. Yeah. Which at the time, they didn't have plans for, what they were going to do with that. I don't think.
I think they wanted to leave it open, which is why it has the ending that it has. But there were no concrete plans, as you can tell by the mediocre storyline of Halloween 5.
So it kind of leaves you, like for you to think of what that could have meant. So she goes over there, she holds his hand, and they're like, Jamie, get away, don't
touch him, Jamie.
And then his hand just clenches the knife, and that's that's so creepy, gives me chills.
Yeah.
And then she gets up, and his hand raises, and then he does that famous like sit up, and then get down, and then she falls.
And it's just that barrage of gunfire. And again, action film director,
right?
Crew, taking all these bullet hits and stuff. And again, that's why maybe we need to make petition that more action film directors direct horror movies.
Right, it worked out for this one.
I think that's where I'm drawing those parallels. So the movie then has its tie into Halloween 5, but then it has this very mysterious ending where Michael goes down this, I'm assuming like an abandoned well or something.
Like a mine shaft.
It's like a mine. Oh, it's a mine shaft. Duh. Yeah. It's an abandoned mine shaft. But it's like, anyway, it's some kind of abandoned mine shaft. Yes. So then the movie cuts to the Carruthers house, and it's kind of this big happy ending, and you have them reunited with the parents. The mother goes and draws a bath for Jamie, and you assume everything is good. Even Loomis says Michael is in hell where he belongs. They haven't found the body, which there was never any definitive end, so I don't know how everyone was so calm.
Right. Especially Loomis. And then at the very end, you almost get a repeat of the events of the first Halloween movie where you see a point of view camera have a mask come over it, and there is a stabbing, but it's Jamie spoiler alert, it's Jamie stabbing her foster mother in the tub that she's drawing for her. And then the look on Loomis's face, we don't know who this is yet. There's not the reveal yet. All you hear is the scream.
And then Loomis
goes halfway up the stairs.
And is like, you see it's like chills again.
Yeah.
Ugh. You see the close-up on his face, and she's like, no. And then you see what he's seeing, which is Jamie with the clown mask over her face with these giant scissors and blood all over her from having stabbed her foster mother. And he's about to get his gun to shoot, more chills. And then here comes Meeker, puts the gun down, raises his own gun, and even he's in a look of shock.
Yeah.
And the movie ends us with that question, like, what the heck?
Can you imagine what happened after that? You know what
Well,
I mean?
we know what happened after that. We got Halloween 5.
I mean, but right after that.
And I think that's what works so great is that it doesn't tell you what happens. You can only imagine. Like, and if you had to throw out a theory, you'd be like, what? Like, did they have to like calmly coax her down?
Right. Yeah.
Was she in a trance? Did she snap out of it? Not Brackett.
Meeker.
Did Meeker fire a warning shot? Did Rachel go up and get her out of the trance? Who knows?
It's really even a creepy thought to even picture like what would happen after that.
And I don't like open ended. All horror movies end open ended because they always say the evil never dies.
Right.
But I like movies with closure. So I usually don't like horror movie endings because it's just like, well, yeah, they're gonna keep it open for a sequel or whatever. But this particular ending, it creeps you out, wondering.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen? What's the horrible payoff to all of this?
It worked.
It did.
You know, and it was
Very
one of
much
the
so.
creepiest, one of the best horror endings ever.
And this is without a shadow of a doubt my favorite Halloween sequel. It's been beaten out by now 10 other entries. Definitely favorite Halloween sequel, hands down, and I'm proud to say it. Absolutely.
Always been my favorite sequel. So yeah, I mean, like out of 10, I'd give it like an 8 out of 10.
In terms of just movie
Just
or
movie,
like
just movie.
Really?
Yeah, because it has the essence of, it has everything. It really does. Like you said.
Yeah.
Acting, cinematography, score,
Everything. Nice. That's a good score. I still don't know how exactly I would score it. I'm just still kind of getting used to the fact that it is now my new #1 favorite. That is a for sure. Favorite sequel of Halloween for sure. And I'm really glad we got a chance to devote an entire episode to this. I didn't know how in detail we were going to get until we actually started doing it, and I'm fully excited that we were able to talk about it for the length of time that we did and give it its true proper, because it really is truthfully the best Halloween sequel out there, hands down. Sorry, everybody else. And
thanks so much, guys, for coming back.
Absolutely,
really
I'm excited to be doing a season 2. It's something that we had talked about in the interim and by the time we had finished season 1. So it's good to be back, and I'm excited to move forward and continue to share things with you guys in our future episodes. So we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Frank. What is something that our audience can expect to see?
Well, one of the things that Leo and I are so... What happened?
Your voice shook.
Was it? God, I thought I had it.
Your voice. like you're going to puberty or something. All I did was breathe. Okay, don't laugh. All I did was breathe. All right.
And
Absolutely.
where the first Halloween film was filmed.
Mm-hmm.
I said filmed twice.
You filmed.
Filmed.
Yeah.
The film was filmed.
So Frank, what is something that our audience can expect from us? You're like red as a cucumber. Wait, cucumbers are green.
Yeah. You're red as a plant.
All right. I swear I can do this. I'm not that out of practice.
Well, one of the things that Leo and I are very passionate about, something we love doing, is
inhaling our phlegm.
I started getting very like nasally.
Yeah. Sorry. It is. Yeah, absolutely. What was I supposed to say after that?
Okay. Staying with us along this whole journey of that's so stupid.
You were almost there.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Gentlemen. Gentlemen.
Okay.
Frank's giggling, for those of you who don't know what's going on.
Okay.